Okay, now I almost never do a serious video on this channel, and even when I do, with the Let's Talk About That or a Top 10, it's usually only semi-serious. However, this is going to be a serious review of Back to the Future, the game, so if you're expecting a PUBG-style review, you're going to be disappointed. I'm doing this for reasons that will be stated at the end of the video, so if you stick around, you might find it worthwhile. Also, if you haven't watched the Back to the Future movies yet, you have no business playing the game or listening to this review, so go watch the movies if you want to play the game. Yes, all three of them. No, you don't have to watch the cartoon, and yes, there is a cartoon. To avoid spoilers, because a single screenshot of this game can spoil 1,000 things, I'm only using footage from the various game trailers, so that's why there's a lot of repeated footage. That being said, let's get started. So Back to the Future the game is a puzzle adventure game taking inspiration from point-and-click titles. You click on various items to interact with them or investigate them, and use the items in your surroundings to solve puzzles that advance the story. Does it work? Well, yes and no. When it comes to video games, there's an age-old question: gameplay or story? Which is more important? Well, if you've ever been on the fence about that question, then Back to the Future the game will solve it for you in the first half an hour, guaranteed. First off, the story is astounding. It manages to fully capture all the magic and feel of the original movies while still being its own thing. After playing through the whole game, I, and I'd say most other people who played it, felt that the story alone made it worthy to bear the title of Back to the Future Part 4. Considering that it was a collaboration from the people at Telltale Games, the people behind Borderlands, and the guys who made the original 3 movies, and the story writer for this game happens to be the very same person who wrote the original 3 movies, I'm not all that surprised, but I am impressed that they managed to capture the same magic of the original movies more than 25 years after they released. The voice work is fantastic all around, unsurprising since they got some of the original actors to play the parts, and every new character feels just like they've always belonged in the Back to the Future universe. For the most part, the dialogue is well written, the graphics are surprisingly fitting and work well, and the music is directly stolen from the movies. Of course, the soundtrack of the movies is fantastic, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. In addition, the puzzles are clever, without being completely unfair. My favorite part of the game was during the last episode, when you had to jog somebody's memory through giving their brain certain stimulations to represent what happened in the past. A mopped head on a cactus makes a grandpa, a sign on an outhouse makes a saloon, and so on. I only ever had to look up the solution to one puzzle in the very first episode, and that ended up only being because my controller didn't recognize a required object as an item. And that's where we get into what's wrong with the game. If We Fight the Game is an example of a game with terrible polish and great core game, then Back to the Future is an example of a game with fantastic polish and a bad core game. After all, when you get a bunch of movie producers to make a video game, you can expect the story and dialogue to be good, but the game itself, not so much. Well, where should I start? Well, the camera is among the worst I've ever seen, being annoyingly hard to control, and since most of the time you never need to manipulate it, you end up forgetting that you can entirely, which makes parts of the game later on when you do need to manipulate it very confusing. It also picks these strange moments to suddenly switch perspectives, which throws you off whenever you're trying to go somewhere across town. There are invisible walls everywhere, giving you some sort of fake 3D experience, but then often you can move around freely just by changing the camera angle, and you can't tell the difference. Despite Hill Valley feeling so big, I just feel so constricted because of this. Plus, Marty is so slow. Even when he's running, which, if you're smart, he'll always be, it still feels like it takes forever to get anywhere. All 3 of these aspects combined makes traversing the world around you a chore. And that's not to mention the terrible controls. Now here's the thing, you'll spend half your time clicking, the other half walking in this game. Initially, it seems that a controller is the best option for both of these, as one of the control sticks can be used to skip from one clickable item on screen to another with ease, and the other control stick can be used to walk freely, whereas you have to drag the mouse a couple of inches away from Marty in whatever direction you want to go if you want to use the mouse and keyboard. However, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes your controller will skip right over the items because it doesn't recognize them, and very often those items are required to solve a puzzle in the game. So you end up constantly switching between the 2 means of controlling, using the controller to move and the mouse to click, and trust me, it gets really annoying. Also, if you hold down either the mouse or the button for more than half a second during dialogue, it sometimes acts like you clicked twice, and skips important pieces of dialogue. And just a tip, in the first episode, a reporter will ask Marty for his name. Just tell her it's Harry Callahan, because no matter what, everyone's going to refer to him as that. Is playing the game a chore? Well, not necessarily. The music and the characters keep the atmosphere up, the puzzles are fairly good, and the story makes you want to keep going. It's more of whether or not the story is worth drudging through the terrible camera and controls. I'll tell you this, if Chugga Conroy ever made a Let's Play of this game, I'd recommend watching it well over playing the game yourself. However, when you look at the Steam reviews for the game, you'll see that the vast majority are positive, and most of the negative ones simply say that the game is meh, and the story and gameplay cancel each other out. Many of the positive reviews say that the story is what makes the game worth playing. And here's the thing, I think they're right. The game is going to be really annoying to play through due to the controls, but the feeling you'll get when you solve a puzzle is never to be underestimated, and the resulting cutscene is a reward in and of itself. I certainly wouldn't recommend watching a walkthrough over playing it, but if you have a character of interesting personality doing a Let's Play or something, you might want to stick to that. Still, the story, music, dialogue, characters, and perfect capturing of the feel of the movies makes this game more than worth the while. On the Game Informer scale of 1 to 10, with 7 being average, 10 being perfection, and 1 being the Aoya controller, I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, I never really cared, I'd give this game a 4 for gameplay and a 9 for story, which rounds off to 6.5, and I'll bring it up to a 7 just so I can officially recommend it. Back to the Future the game gets a 7 out of 10. Now, the reason I decided to do this review now, besides the fact that I just finished the game 2 days ago, is because Humble Bundle just released their Telltale bundle, which includes Back to the Future the game. As it's normally priced, there's a toss-up as to whether or not you should get the game, but at 1/20th of the price for the next 13 days, there's really no question about it, so go buy the game now. Just do it. Also, as you would know if you translated Evil Grapes' message on our last video, we have a new top 10 coming out soon. It was supposed to be released today, but it turned out that the top 10s are still just as hard to make as we remember. Expect it soon, though. It's the top 10 minigames. So, bye.